No! No! No!
What is up, my ghosts? This is the Horror Pop Extravaganza. The manifestation of the macabre and the mindful smashing together like two cosmic forces. We are here to do it. We are here to do it. And today, I'm very excited. I'm very excited because I sent you a message. I'm like, yo, let's record something. You're like, bet. I got all the days. Let's do something. I'm like, sweet, record a bunch. Get a bunch in the bag if you can. Um, and you're like, hey, we could do something new. And you were the second person to recommend Heretic to me. And I'm like, I'm gonna get down on it. I added it to my watch list, but I would say, this past like 2 or 3 weeks, I've been really now finalizing the last parts of putting my business together. It's getting close to execution time, so I was getting a lot of stuff. Like everything I needed is now slowly getting into place. And I didn't want to commit to a new movie because I'm like, hey, I don't have, I want to be able to sit and watch it. I don't want to discredit anybody's art form. So you said an oldie but a goodie. And I'm like, okay, I love oldies but goodies. This is a relatively oldie, not a super oldie. 25 years now, 26 years. So a half a century or a quarter of a century. So yeah, I guess it is getting to the point of being an oldie. I guess it's how you look at it. So we're going back to 1999, and this, as a kid who grew up in the woods, like the house when I go to stay in Port Huron to go work down there, I'm going to move down there eventually, but the house that I stay in down there is the house I grew up in, and it is in a little clearing on 10 acres of woods. It's just woods. And I used to bring the kids from the city out, and we'd take them out of the woods and shit after this movie came out, and it would scare the fuck out of them. This movie always got under my skin, though. I remember being out in those woods and throwing on the VHS or the DVD because that was just right at the cusp of DVD. I feel like I had this with the documentaries and shit on it. Came with all the special features, the menus, the secret menus you'd get on your DVD and shit. It was very cool. But this, when we talked about it, I'm sure a lot of people have figured it out already, but I'm going to keep not saying the title. So the other, not last night, but the night before, my youngest ends up in bed with us on my side, is like kicking me and punching me all night. I did not get good sleep at all throughout the night. And then the dog's on my side of the bed at 5 a.m. clicking his nails, click, 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 click. And that means like, I'm hungry. I need to go outside. I'm like, okay. So I'm like, I already haven't slept. I get up at 5, feed the animals, dog eats, let him back out to go take a shit. He's always got to take a shit after he eats. Let him back out to go do that. He comes back in, chills. I'm like, I'm not going back to that bedroom. I'm not being punched and kicked. So 5 o'clock in the morning, I turn all the lights off in the living room and I throw this flick on. I sit there, I give it my full attention. I'm hanging out, I'm watching this movie. It scared the shit out of me again. Yeah. It's so, I've seen it probably, 100+ times. Because when we did have those limited movies, you watch the same shit. And then if there was somebody who hadn't seen it, you're like, yo, check this shit out. And then all of the media hype that surrounded this thing, it was brilliant, man. Brilliant marketing, a brilliant marketing campaign. And then the execution of how they did it, how you got some of these performances out of the people that in some ways, this is like Kubrick level tormenting and shit. But they knew. Whereas Shelley Duvall, I don't think, or Scabman Carruthers and some of these cats knew how intense he was going to be. They understood, like, hey, the three of you are going into the fucking woods. Here's a bare bones script about what you're going to be doing. And oh, by the way, we're not going to tell you what we're going to be fucking with you the whole time. and yes, and all that came together in the most beautiful way possible and gave us the Blair Witch Project. A lot of people say first found footage. I think you could argue Cannibal Holocaust was first found footage, but this was full extent. The entirety of the thing was us watching the footage that was presumably found. Whereas in Holocaust, you know, you find some footage, you get to watch a lot of it, but then you also have another narrative going on at the same time that's bringing these characters in. Oh, by the way, I'm Pops Ghostly, and with me today.
Hey everybody, I'm Preston Ham.
Oh, I love it. Preston. I just want to see you covered. Like, I want to draw you now in a ham sandwich, like you just in the middle of some slimy ham, some old ham, that shit that smells a little funny. Um, Sorry, we did not do our introductions. I'm very excited to talk about this movie. But everything that surrounded it now, I'm sure you saw it in the theater, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so I saw this and it was super cool because I had just heard all the a friend of mine got super into it. Like he had the internet before anybody had the internet and he's like, "Dude, I fucking heard this crazy shit about these kids who got killed in the forest." And I was just and he told me like the whole lore of it. Like where we're walking around like a record store looking for some cool CDs and shit. And I was like, "Holy shit, dude, I got to find out about this." So at this about the same time, Sedona was having a film festival and they were showing this movie at the film festival. So when I saw it, I thought it was a motherfucking documentary, and I
Everybody did.
just shit everywhere. It was so scary, and I lived in Flagstaff, so everywhere was woods.
Right.
And yeah, dude, I remember like we went to get out of the car, and my apartment was kind of like at the back of this complex, dude, and it was surrounded by woods. And we pulled in, and we're like, "Yeah, dude, you just can go ahead and go on in, and I'm just gonna." like, get my balls like tucked up and everything. Like I was so nervous. We were like, God, we're pussies. We are grown ass adults and we're scared
Listen,
of a movie we
listen,
saw.
listen. It was not being pussies, even though you were much more of an adult than I was, I think, at that time, because you've got a couple years on me. And that does matter between
Yeah,
like,
I graduated in 97.
oh, see, I was a freshman in 97. So 99 for me was junior year, which was fucking incredible because then I was bringing kids from school out into the woods. Like, yo, let's go out there. We'll fuck get high. I dare you. And I'd have a flashlight. Then I would just turn it off and run away because I knew the woods. They'd be like, fuck. You know, we didn't have cell phones and shit with flashlights all over them in 99. And, you know, I'd go back and get them and whatever. But yeah, this was an event. This was something that everybody was talking about, man. It was like, yo, what do you think? You know, and that's the beauty, I think, of movie, cinema, film, whatever the fuck you want to call it, done right, is it drives conversation
Yeah,
because you're never really going to learn a moral lesson from a movie, but you will learn some things about yourself and about others from talking about them, you know, really digging into it. And this one had everybody talking, even though it was scary as shit, you know, it had everybody talking. And it was the internet used to, you know, the early internet used to its advantage. They were like, put this shit on Discovery Channel, make a fucking website, put old articles in things. I know the people of Burkittsville got like fucking bombarded by everybody showing up trying to figure out if it was real and shit like that. And for a while, and I think they might even still embrace it. They might even more now than they did back then. But I know the restaurants had burgers and shit, like, you know, the Blair Witch Burger. And much like the Cannibal Holocaust, though, is the director was like, hey, you motherfuckers are like going into hiding. Like you're not real people. You know what I mean? Like
right,
this has got to happen. And with Cannibal Holocaust, they took that motherfucker to court in like Italy or some shit. Was like, bro, you better show these people up because this is snuff. And he's like, no,
right,
I promise it's not. Just amazing practical effects. Except that poor turtle. They did eat it though, so you know, there's probably a lot of jungle people that still eat, you know, the turtles and shit like that. But either way, it's not fun to watch. I guess you know, it doesn't feel good to watch it. Whereas this one is fun to watch. This is a fucking ride. And like I said, I watched it at 5 a.m. and was just getting in it again, dude. Like, so, like, fuck. As a kid who grew up in the woods, the performances that these cats give is just fucking great. You know, they said it took like a grand, I mean, it was 60,000 total budget, I think. Like, only like fucking couple 2 weeks to film the whole thing, maybe 2.5 weeks, but then like 7 months to go through all the footage and fucking edit everything down. Some of them, even I was reading, they couldn't get the cameras to work right, and that's why a lot of shit's out of focus. Some of the footage was lost where we actually are supposed to see the witch at one point.
Oh
Is they
shit.
had one camera guy that his whole job was turn your fucking head and barely see this white in a gown and shit, and he forgot to turn. And so, so and they did, you ain't got the money to sit there because this is all on film and whatnot. And I think though they did degrade the film even after they shot it, like did it on whatever, and then took the time to, dirty it up a little bit even more to give it a more rustic feel. But yeah, they made this thing for 60,000 and it made like 250 some $1 million or something insane like that. Jason Blum was originally attached to it and was like, no, that's a silly idea. And then fucking because somebody was, I think Miramax, Blum was with Miramax at the time and was like, no, that's silly. And then, a couple years later would make fucking Paranormal Activity and pick that shit up for the same fucking premise and concept. So yeah, I think what he likes to do is just take other people's ideas and fucking make a bunch of money on it. Who knows?
Weird.
Yeah, just call it Black Christmas. I'm never gonna get over it. I don't think I'm ever gonna get over it, dude. Just call it Black Christmas.
The thing about this movie that's so scary is that it gets into you primarily, like you said, it gets under your skin.
Very dark.
There's little to no blood in this movie. There are no like crazy effects. Nothing really supernatural happens, maybe until the end. It works on both levels where it could be supernatural or it could be true crime.
Now, have you watched all the alternate endings, like on your DVD and shit?
I don't know if I've seen all the alternate endings. I've watched all the documentary and
So, so the alternate endings actually bring a lot more of those elements. There's one where he's hanging by a fucking noose, and I'm like, that's terrifying.
yeah.
Another one where he's just like floating in the middle of the room, just like suspended by nothing. And then I want to say there's a third one that I can't, maybe he kills her or some shit. I don't know. But yeah, the other endings, and they did really take the time because I've watched the shit on my iTunes or whatever and my DVDs, the behind the scenes, and they took the time to fucking really think about it and say, okay, we can't go too far because there was going to be a relationship, I guess, a love interest between Heather and Josh. And they were like, no, fuck that. Like, it's too, we got to keep this kind of the way that it is. So I respect that, they had this vision and fucking went for it, but took the time not to just throw it out there and built this whole thing around it. Like, it's like build a cool fucking plan and execute, dude. And they did it. And like you said, it's primal. It is what is in the dark. And we'll get there when we talk about it, and I'll bring up some of the fun facts and shit like that. But why don't you? And that's something I was going to bring up as well. I want to start doing that a little more with our podcast, and I'm going to try on my side, just ensure talking, more themes and stuff like that. Not just giving a straight fucking rundown of the movie because you can watch it yourself, but talking more of the ideas and what went well and what worked well, and maybe what didn't. Maybe pull it a little more that way, and get some of your insights and shit. So why don't you put it out there? I'm excited to talk about this thing. Who's in it? Who made it? What does IMDb think that the Blair Witch Project circa 1999. What a fucking good year for movies, dude. The Matrix shit. Oh, yeah, 99 was a good year. So go ahead, lay it out there, Preston Ham.
Preston Ham. We got the Blair Witch Project from 1999, rated R, 1 hour and 21 minutes, directed by Daniel Myrick and Eduardo Sanchez. And of course, written by them as well.
Right. There was a couple, I think there was a couple other writers, though. I think there might have been when I opened it up bigger. They might just have those two on IMDb, but I think there were some other people who helped out with the script. But you're right. This is an idea that you got to do yourself. You can't hand it off to somebody else and be like, oh, here's this crazy fucking idea about a scary witch.
Right. And from a filmmaker's point of view, like the best laid plans, you could come up with this idea, but if you don't get the three right people, it would fucking derail the entire thing. And like you said, these cats brought it, dude. And they just like they responded to an ad for like an acting gig, which is like when you're in 99, you had to get
for people like with improv skills was the biggest thing. We need to show that you can fucking take two sentences and live it for 5 minutes, because they didn't get the whole script. They got nothing about like, you say this, you say that. They got situations. And then they had to push them sometimes. Like I know the bundle in the woods, like they didn't know the bundle was going to be there. And when she finds it, she's like, oh, fuck. And just threw it. And they were like, you got to open it up. You know what I mean? Because the teeth were in there. So there were those instances. And they did every day ration their food a little bit. They got a little less food to make them fucking miserable. But they
Yeah.
didn't have to carry their own tents. Somebody on the crew carried the tents. They had to do everything else, carry all their shit around and do the filming. You know, they had cameras in their hands and they had to know how to. So these are, you know, student age people. The whole premise is this is a student, you know, documentary in this Burkittsville witch.
And sadly, these cats got fucked too because they did this first movie and they've used their likeness and like even sound bites and shit and other
Yeah.
stuff, and they didn't get paid for any of that stuff. So
No, it's Star Wars with the figures all over again. It's fucking, you know, Napoleon Dynamite getting $1,500. That said, early on, they never knew this was gonna fucking do what it was gonna do. You know,
right.
yeah, you could have probably been pay me nothing and fucking if it blows up, give me 1%.
Right.
But when you're a young fucking kid, you're like, I'll take the $1,500, fucking 2 grand, whatever you're paying me for the day, you know, these 2 weeks, and I'll take that and do something. And I know
When
she
they're
got
when they're
into,
starting
like,
out.
weed. Yeah, she got into like medical weed and shit after the movie. I'm like, good for you, Heather. That's fucking cool. But they get together sometimes. I think a 20-year documentary or a stage thing where a bunch of people at a college watched the movie and then they did a Q&A after the fact, and it was insightful. It was cool.
Yeah. But there were lawsuits involved in shit. And so for a
Yeah.
while they couldn't even like talk about that they were in the movie and stuff. It was a mess.
Yeah.
But they're starting to like through the internet and everything and like people finding out that they didn't get paid, they're starting to like now they're starting to land gigs and shit. And
Which
they're
is
talking about doing a reboot and they're gonna use their character names and so they're gonna pay them and shit. Finally.
That's good. That's good. You know, and it's the same thing with Night of the Living Dead, dude. Those cats didn't get paid until the Criterion 4K came out because the Library of Congress was like, yes, that is so different from the original. But then at the same time, I'm like, if it had been copyrighted, would we have Night of the Living Dead the way we have it now? Because it was available to watch all the fucking
Right.
time. You know, you could play it on TV. But either way, continue. Blair Witch, IMDb.
Yes. Uh, the star of this is Heather Donahue, who fucking brought it. Her performance stands out above everybody else's.
Slays, dude.
And I've seen her here and there pop up and stuff, and it's always fun to
Really?
see her. Yeah. She
Oh,
was Charlie's baby mama in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And she had like this horrible fucking kid that Charlie like took out for a day and then found out that it was like somebody else's kid. And
nice.
yeah, yeah. But she was like the slutty mom who like had to go work at the diner or whatever.
That's fun.
Yeah, yeah, she was awesome. Michael C. Williams as Mike and Joshua Leonard as Joshua Leonard.
Gosh. Yeah.
That's fucked when they like fuck your real name. And
Right.
then they're like, you can't use that name because that's the character's name and that's property.
Right. 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 Like, I mean, took your actual identity. It was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
that's intellectual property in this to
You got to
me.
change your name, buddy.
Right.
We're gonna put that name on a
They
t-shirt.
did keep their names, you know, for just realism purposes. That you could say the name and they're going to respond naturally every single time. It's not somebody trying to remember, oh, my name is fucking Dave now. And I got
Right.
that. It's like, yeah, you're just hollering at each other and, you know, from here and from there. Yeah, it's cool.
All right, you ready to hear what IMDb has to say the Blair Witch is about?
I'm excited.
3 film students vanish after traveling into a Maryland forest to film a documentary on the local Blair Witch legend, leaving only their footage behind.
Close enough, but
It,
I think we should come up you every week you should write a counter IMDb. Like, have you ever wanted to shit your pants as an adult? This is the fucking movie for you. Oh, IMDb, you try, that's cool. All right, dude, let's dive in.
yeah,
So we open up right away with title cards leading you to believe that this shit is real.
yeah. I don't even think this could happen now because like there would be lawsuits brought up and shit.
Yeah. Well, if you watch all the way through the credits, it says right at the fucking
Right.
end, this whole thing, but nobody stayed. Everybody was too scared and got the fuck out of Dodge. It was like, I don't want her to come get me in this dark theater. Run. You know, and they did do the credits well, where they drew them out for a while, and you know, it could have been fast. There couldn't have been more than fucking 20 people. That probably helps, you know, put this thing together for the most part. But you get these title cards to say, this is the footage that we found. There were these 3 film students looking to make a documentary film project for school. And you're about to witness exactly what the police found. It's like, okay. Yeah, and again, you got to go back to 1999 to a pre-internet world
Right.
where, like you said, I had two friends that had the internet. We had the internet, but you had to fuck it. It was an old computer, and you had to unplug the phone and put it in, and it barely downloaded like one picture. I just sat on it to play Wolfenstein or Doom, like that's or maybe the Oregon Trail, or with the encyclopedia. I remember the fucking Windows encyclopedia
Yeah,
was really
dude.
cool. But you didn't have the access like you have now to quickly look and say, is this real or not? So movie opens up, we get the title cards, and then we're picking up Mike. We've got Josh and Heather are together, and Mike's suit. They're already filming. They're filming everything and talking like film students. We got to get the dad back, man. We got to do this. I like it. Even though I feel like the word "dat" was used a lot when she's like, the dad can't go across the river." But they're picking Mike up. We've got a super cool 90s vibe soundtrack going in this little fucking beater that they're all going to pile into. And he's like, "Bye, mom. See you later. Love you." So everyone's in the car now. We're hyped up. We're getting excited. And they feel so natural. And that's what I like is when actors feel they don't even feel like actors. And by the time they get to the end of this, I don't know if they were in an acting state of mind. These responses and reactions, and again, a lot of it was planned. Like the map going in the water, Heather and Josh didn't know. Like Mike was the only one who knew that that was going to happen. And so when he tells them, they're like, "What the fuck?" Like, you know what I mean? Yeah, like real responses. Um, and we get a really cool look at Burkittsville, and we're jumping between two cameras, one that's like a 35 millimeter, maybe black and white, and another one. I don't know what the fucking film stocks are, but we got a black and white and a color one that looks more documentary film and one that looks more, let's document the documentary being made. And
Right.
so we've got the locals around Burkittsville, very cool too. And again, the natural responses, the mom and the little girl, where she's talking to her, she's like, "No," and she's smacking her in the face. And she's like, "It's not real. It's real." Telling the things like we don't ever.
Yeah.
You get the woman that they just found on the street who made up that whole fucking story about the long hair and she was floating covered in hair.
Yeah,
And
dude.
we start to get some exposition between all these characters and the two fishermen. The one claims he had seen it, and he's like, "You're fucking full of shit." But we do hear tale of this guy that was kidnapping kids back in the day and would take them up to this fucking place wherever, make them stare in the corner while he killed one, and the other one had to stare in the corner and not look. And I'm like, creepy shit, man. And so the exposition is set up perfect. We've got this idea. All right, Heather's got the map. But before we take off, we get them being chummy in the hotel, like, "Oh, I fucking hate scotch. Let's all cut each other and bleed on the slate." Um, but we get into the woods. The first day, we're gonna try and find Coffin Rock and some old cemetery. I think supposedly there's some old cemetery. She knows right where we're going. For anyone who's ever spent any amount of time in the woods and been lost, it can get scary fast. It can get scary fast. And they
Dude,
didn't.
the world was scary before MapQuest.
Right.
And this was before that. If you got lost, you were fucking lost. People don't know what lost is anymore.
Yeah. I mean, now even your phone has an emergency thing with no signal. You can ping, ping, ping. Right.
Help! Help!
Right. But this, and they do an amazing job of disorienting you about direction and stuff like that, which I think is good. If you've ever walked for some time, and I have been in situations where we walked and ended up at the same spot, and it's like, fuck, we just went a big circle. We thought we were going one way and we just went in a huge circle. But they park on the side of the road. Everybody's all geared up, ready to go, big packs on, all this shit. We're trekking into the woods. We get to Coffin Rock first, and she does her little thing like this here happened. I think she ad-libbed all that shit too. I want to say that was just on the fucking fly, and I'm like, man, that's good. As someone who has studied improvisation, I fucking respect the shit out of it, dude. It's hard to do, and to try and be serious improv is even harder. It's easy to be funny improv, but to be serious, yeah, takes something special. So they do this. Oh, I like the footage. Oh, I don't like the footage. Maybe we can just cut me out. Blah, blah, blah. Let's go to find the cemetery. And here we do find the cemetery pretty quick, right? Before they camp for the night and it starts
Yeah.
getting dark and we're going to get back to the car, maybe. I think this might have been all the footage they actually needed from out in the woods and shit like that. And it's like, okay, we got the stuff that we needed. It's great. They're all gathered up in the tent together. It's like, hey, you can't fucking fart in here if I can't smoke in here, you know? And you see this kind of bonding happening between these three while making this documentary. And we might hear some stuff in the night. And I know what the crew was doing was walking at a perimeter around the where they were filming and breaking big sticks and throwing them. And that's how they were getting that constant like almost like the woods is alive a little bit and shit's falling. Like I love that. Like it's coming, like closing in on this tent, and throughout the entirety, there's this claustrophobia that continues to just like fuck. It's there, and now it's getting right. So good. But Josh wakes up and I think says like, ah, fuck, I might have heard some fuck cackling. Like there was branches breaking, but I definitely heard some cackling. And they're like, yo, you get a video or anything? Nah, I'm fuck tired and dark and shit. I can't do all that. So we're getting ready now to trek on. It's time to find our way back. And this is where shit just starts to go bad, dude. It starts to go bad fast. And bad in a way that is death by 1,000 cuts. It's slow. And when it intensifies, it intensifies. But the overwhelming feeling of dread, like you said, the primal fears, the fear of what is in the dark, that's in us, from sitting in a fucking cave with a spear hanging out, like, please don't come in and get me out of the dark. Until we got fire, it was probably really fucking scary, really scary. So we trek.
Yeah.
Oh,
And people that are afraid and under pressure. Oh, sorry.
no,
People that are
go.
afraid and under pressure do stupid shit, and you see them start to break down.
Yeah. And these three break down well. And they don't break down at first. At first, they're like, taking
Yeah.
video of each other, pissing in the woods, like, Heather, ha ha ha, Sasquatch gonna get you. Hee hee, this and that. This is gonna be great. I can't wait to get back. My mom's gonna make fucking lasagna or something. My girlfriend, I got class, whatever. They're talking about regular life. At this point, they still believe there's a way out of this thing. We get some great shots in the woods of them, like I said, crossing the river, arguing, kind of real life things. And then all of a sudden, hey, the seed of doubt is planted. Are we lost? No.
Yeah.
Where?
They realize the car's not where they thought the car was.
Right. Nothing is where they thought where it was. She's like, I know where it's at.
That's trippy too. So like when you wonder like, okay, is the forest moving around itself? I got that idea that like the forest was
Yeah.
taking them where it wanted them to go, and it was actually changing, whether it was changing the land or it was actually just like changing their minds or their perceptions. Like
Right.
it was really interesting to like think about like uh how did they get so lost out there when they had like points on their map? Although, like I said, if unless you can read a map, good luck going out in the forest and being like, well, there's this big rock. We know that's right here. Now, where's our car? Fuck.
See, I'd probably be okay in that situation, relatively okay. But you're right. And we would get more of that later on in the Blair Witch lore with just the Blair Witch that I think was 2020, 2019, something like that, which would go on to show that the woods is being manipulated. But I was always with you in like, I thought it was like shifting around them. Like they're in a point, and every time they think it's just moving, the actual existence of everything. It's the witch like fucking
Right.
turning them around.
Like they're in the Twilight Zone, and the Twilight Zone can change around them.
Right. Right. And that's super scary.
Yeah.
And you get a lot more of it, like I said, in 2020. It's the fucking woods is alive, tripping you out, taking you from one place to another. But in this, it's where we continue to walk and we end up back at the same places. But before we get super deep into that, I think we camp again for the night and that's where we hear some shit at night, and then we wake up and see they start coming across the rock piles
Mhm.
first. I
Like
think
right outside their tent. Like they unzip it and
yeah,
someone has piled rocks 6 feet from
directly
your
outside
fucking
the
head.
door.
Like
Yeah. And she's like, I'm gonna just move these. I'm gonna put them over here safely, get them out of the way. And it's like, what the fuck? And still trying to rationalize that I feel any of us would do in this situation.
yeah.
It's some fucking hillbillies fucking with us, or it's somebody out in the woods. And sorry, friend, it's
I
not.
feel like you were the guy that would go out in the woods and fuck with people if they got lost camping.
Dude, when I was a teenager, I used to hide in the woods and come walking out at oncoming cars at night, fully dressed as Michael Myers. Fully
What
dressed,
the
and I'd walk
fuck,
right
dude?
towards their cars.
I feel like you never shot.
Right. I almost did one time, but it was a friend of ours who was like, "Why are you outside my buddy's house?" And my other guy's in the bushes laughing his ass off. He's like, "Fuck you!" And he's got a BB gun, but I only see it from the dark. I'm like, "James!" And I fucking ripped the mask off. I'm like, "It's me, it's me." He's like, "You motherfuckers, fucking freak me out." He's like, "Yeah, yeah, it's kind of funny though, right? Like, look at your face." Go up to the gas station. I would dress as Michael Myers at like 2 a.m. And I'd come, my brother would go running by covered in fake blood and shit. And he'd go and beat on the windows like, help. And then we'd have another homie in the car with the video camera, like zoomed in on the clerk people, like, ah, with the Halloween music playing, because I couldn't fucking edit or do any of that. I didn't have any shit for that. So just played over the radio loud. Ding, ding, ding. You'd see these fucking people in there, their eyes get all big. It was fun. So we got these piles of rock, terrifying. Now we walk and then back up at the same place after walking almost all day or some shit like that. And people are really getting fucking freaked the fuck out. And it's like, holy shit, no, this is the same exact rock or the same exact log that we walked over earlier. What are we going to do? There's got to be a way out. Somebody, we don't have the map yet. I think we sleep one more night before the map, and that's when we hear shit like the tent doesn't shake till the very end. But I feel like we have one more night before she asks Mike for the map, and just let me see the map. I can get us
There's a
out.
really like there's a really lonely moment where they think they're gonna make it back to their car that day, and when they realize they have to camp again, it's
Yeah,
starting to get dark, and that's the last thing they fucking want is to like have to sit through another night of being scared.
right,
And that's the part that always fucking gets me, like psychologically, because I've been there before where there's like my hope is taken away. And then that's when like it seems like the irrational fear gets in there better, gets in between the cracks, and you start not thinking right.
right, right. And see, I feel like I would just cover myself in butter like Bronson and stand in the woods naked and be like, "Come on, bitch, let's do it."
Perfect.
Right.
Perfect plan, Pops Ghostly.
That's how
Come and get me.
right.
There's a naked man covered in butter back there. Let's get out of here, Blair Witch.
Right. This is not what I signed up for being a witch. I did not sign up for that tattooed monstrosity coming after me covered in butter. I don't want it. But you're right, that hopelessness, that feeling of the only shot we had, or the feeling of just I don't want to do this again. Nighttime,
Yeah.
scary.
Yes.
Nighttime is very scary. And so we have nighttime. We get the map situation when Mike's like, I fucked through the fuck water, bro.
That's where the whole thing changes, I think, because that's where they really get hopeless. They're
Right.
hopelessly lost. And now someone that they counted on, someone that was their friend, fucked them hard.
Right. And
And
he,
you feel
like
that.
you said, though, you wonder where he's at psychologically. He's like, it's not doing us any fucking good. And he's right to begin with.
Right.
He is correct. The map is not doing us a lick of fucking good, but she's like, I could have fucking found our way out. Da, da, da. And they start hollering, and then we see clips of them just like somber as fuck, sitting in the grass or sitting underneath a tree, accepting this new fate. And this thing keeps getting worse and worse. So we are gonna spend the night. We have to. And then we wake up in the middle of the night and fucking Josh is gone.
Yeah.
And hearing Josh scream from far away Yeah. And so that was all pre-recorded. I did read that. That was pre-recorded and they played it over this huge fucking speaker in the middle of the woods. And
Imagine, dude, you're
you know,
scared, you're cold, you're
yeah,
hungry, and your friend that we didn't know he was going to leave is now
right,
gone. We've
right,
gone from a tripod of three that feels relatively safe to now just two. And
right.
two's never safe.
No, no. Three's good. Two is hard. Two's better than one, but it's still hard. So we're screaming, fuck it, Josh, where are you? And these cats are blowing their lungs out.
Yeah,
It's so real, that visceral, feral, trapped animal. Josh. And all you hear is like, "Ah," way off in the distance while the sticks are fucking crack crack. And we've already saw some of the stick people hanging up in the trees, the fucking Blair Witchy things. Snap, snap, snap. All this shit's terrible. Um, we have to go back to sleep, and they do, and that's the worst. And they're starting to accept their fate a little bit. They're becoming very, Mike found a couple cigarettes in the bottom of his, and up until just recently, maybe 20 years ago, maybe not that long, 15, 10 years ago, I never understood that line because I never thought he was talking about his actual rucksack and not the bottom of his pack of cigarettes. I'm like, how you fucking not see a cigarette in the bottom of the pack? Fucking, they're meant to just hold cigarettes up and down. So I feel much better now knowing he's talking about his backpack, his sack.
That's such an important line, though. He said he's sitting there and he's smoking those cigarettes that he found, and he's like, "If we're smoking, we're alive."
Right. Yeah.
It's like, dang, that's fuck.
And they both start chiefing on some cigarettes and hanging out, and we got to sleep. And we wake up to find Josh's teeth wrapped up in a bundle of sticks with some twine. And this is after the Blair Witchy stuff has been all over. And I think it might have been when Josh is gone, where she's like, "What the fuck was that?" This is where we were supposed to see the guy turn the camera and see like a white figure just for barely a second, like something in the woods with them to see it getting closer. But I think it works better without it,
Yeah, because your brain fills in what's over there,
Right. It fills in the blank. And it's like, I mean, I say that because I haven't seen it. Maybe if I saw it, I'd be like, "Oh, it's so fucking good." Did you see it? Just a little thing. So they wake up, they unbundle the thing. Josh's tooth is all bloody in there. There's some other shit in there. She's like, "The fuck," trying to wash herself off in the creek. Like, "I'm just over here. Don't go anywhere, Mike. Like, stay in earshot. Where are you?" They're terrified. And so they get cleaned up and we get into our tent for the last night. Fuck. And did the tent shake happen with Josh in there, or is it just these two? I think it's just these two because it shakes and they run out.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
at some point, we get her doing her famous, like, looking into the camera, doing
Yeah.
her final confession thing.
Monologue. Yeah. But
And
this is where they didn't know the tent was going to shake. And those reactions are real, that they're
yeah,
just
yeah.
standing outside fucking violently shaking this thing.
That's about the scariest thing I can think of, dude, because you're inside the tent. It's your safety place. You
But it's so
don't want to.
thin. There's no way, you know what I mean? If somebody wants to cut their way through, yeah, you got to get the fuck out. Like they could just light it on fire with you in there for all they care. And so,
Absolutely. Yeah. You're like, you feel safe inside, but you are not safe. And you realize that. And you're like, we got to leave it. But the idea of like, it's like that base little thing you have when you're a kid where you cover yourself with your covers to protect you. Like that's going to fucking do anything, but you somehow like get some safety out of that. A
right, out
tent
of
is the
sight,
same
out of
thing,
mind.
dude. Right. But if somebody shakes your fucking tent, just like if somebody came up and like fucking grabbed you in your bed when you're under your covers, you would shit and piss everywhere, dude.
Right. And we do get that run, and shit is very fucking scary. And then you get the monologue that, I mean, was parodied so many times. Fucking Anna Faris did it really funny in a Scary Movie, which is like leaking everywhere. But at the time, this was like so gut punching. Like,
Hey, you're watching someone's final confession.
right. Josh's mom, "I'm sorry, Mike's mom." And and her eyes are like, "What the fuck was that?" And
Yeah, dude.
everywhere, all over. And it's very, very haunting. Like I said, if you could shut your brain off from every previous notion you have of this movie or the parodies or anything like that and get lost in it like it was the first time, it still is crazy. And so they take off running together. And we got some lights here and there. Now we're completely, like you said, the safety has been severed. our tent, all of our gear, everything has been completely severed. Now it's fight or flight. We don't have any other choice. And we decide to flight, but flight leads us, hey, is that a house? Again, this thing has been steering them here the entire time. And it's been
Right.
waiting, amping up. Freddie always fed on the fear. He wanted to get you super afraid because it tasted better once he finally got you. And I think this, in like the same way as we finally like amped up your fucking psychosis to 11, and now we're gonna feast on you. The house is terrifying.
Exactly. And where my mind went when I saw this was they've been going around this area in circles for days now. They haven't seen this house. Was the Blair Witch trying to get them scared enough to where their power was like potent enough to see the house or for the house to like be
Oh,
there?
yeah, to like manifest. That's a good
And if
view.
you look, the outside of the house has little kid handprints all over the
And
outside of
the
the house.
inside,
It
the
continues
outside and the
inside. Yeah.
inside. When they
But
first
it's just this
stairs,
an abandoned house in the woods is scary during the day.
right.
So like they go in there and it is just it's a horror show. And again, I think when you're outside and you're scared, all you want to do is get inside. But then once you get inside, you're like, fuck, now I feel so fucking trapped. At least outside we could run.
Right. But they hear Josh. That's the thing, is they hear Josh's voice,
Right.
and Mike takes off sprinting like, Josh, I'm coming. You hear Heather in the back. The cameras are all out of focus, fucking bouncing upstairs. And then we do stop and just see a bunch of youth handprints in like mud or blood all over this place. It's everywhere. And it's super disorienting, which we would see in the Blair Witch when they would go in one room and be back in the same room. But this one, it feels like it goes on forever, up and down. And they get all the way upstairs, see some, again, just a fucking nightmare, dude. Like there's hands everywhere, handprints and all this shit. Mike hears Josh in the basement. Josh, I'm coming. And she's like, fucking Mike, wait. And all of us watching are like, oh,
Right.
yeah. The intensity right here is so fucking palpable. And then you get to the basement, and there's Mike just standing in the corner. Heather comes around. Mike, fucking thunk. She gets hit in the head. Camera falls. Tick, 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 tick. You get that like film on the spool. Tick, tick, tick. Credits.
Yeah, dude. Goosebumps every time, dude. Just
Got
like,
him.
oh.
Yeah. Yeah. That final like 5 minutes, dude. And in the Blair Witch, the one I've mentioned a couple times, in the house, we get almost the same ending after they're really caught in the woods. When the other kids come back and they're like, we've been here for 6 fucking weeks, man. Where have you guys been? And they're like, we just came out here with you 10 minutes ago. Where you been? So the time distortion, you get into the house and actually see the witch, I think, a couple times, like as you're like fucking torn through. But him in that really shallow, almost Midwest, Eastern Seaboard basement made of stones and things, and just fucking, she falls. There it is. Roll credits.
And I love that because it's ambiguous. It could be, I don't know if I just said that word right, but
Ambiguous is the word.
ambiguous.
Ambiguous is the word.
Oh man, I gotta stop the weed, dude.
Nah, it ain't the weed.
It is. I used to be an eloquent motherfucker. And in the last year, I've just been degrading to just putty mouth, dude. It's terrible.
Just read a book instead of stop the weed. Okay, so go ahead. Yes, the ambiguous ending. What the fuck just happened?
I love that way more than any of the floaty shit or any of that stuff where it's like, yes, this is supernatural because at this point it could have been somebody fucking with them the entire time, dude, and using like the
Well,
legend.
because they give you the legend of the guy out in the woods, It
Right,
wasn't the
right.
witch, it was the man. Whatever,
Yeah.
the fucking old whatever his name who lived out there who would make him do it. It wasn't fucking her, but
Right.
maybe, she is now just playing on all that fear that is there, circa Pennywise from It or something like that. You're feeding on the fear of the youth because they're the easiest to manipulate. And since this dude did all this bad shit, it gives the witch enough power to fucking actually start to turn and manipulate. And the more scared you get, the worse it gets.
Right.
It's that cover yourself in butter, people. Bronson, do the Bronson thing and just take your notes from Tom Hardy, how he did it in the movie, And just,
Yeah.
I'm telling you, you should be like, I'm fucking moving on from Maryland. Let's see what's happening in Jersey. Let's go somewhere else. I can't do this. These fuckers are weird. I don't know what's going on. Uh,
I really like that we don't see the Blair Witch. I feel like when we did later in that later movie, it takes away from it, I think.
Well, and I think we were already expecting certain things going into that new movie. You know, you come in with a preconceived notion of what the Blair Witch is because, you know, we mentioned that movie, but we had Book of Shadows that would come out relatively shortly thereafter. Which I've heard that if they would have let the director put all the shit he wanted in there, like all the effects and all the kills and stuff, it would have been a cooler movie. Most people look at it like, it's fine. You know, you can go watch it, Book of Shadows, but at the same time, it just doesn't do it. The video game was super fucking cool where you get to walk around with your dog and be in the woods and shit and all that. I had a blast with that. And then you've had so much other media, I feel like maybe comic book. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a prequel comic book.
Is there a prequel comic? Yeah. So there's all kinds of shit associated with this. And I think, you know, as you said, they're talking about doing some more with it. Because it is a great lore. It's fun. So there's been good, there's been bad, but this original from 99, I'll let you go first. Out of how many terrifying camping experiences do you give the Blair Witch Project?
I give the Blair Witch Project a solid 4. It's a great movie, but it's more than just the movie itself. The mythos that it created, what it did at the time, the fact that it became so big off a nothing budget. I mean, this was one of the major influences on me as a filmmaker, and I used to call 99 like my summer of love, dude, because
Yeah.
I like came into like I saw stuff that had been out for a while for the first time because I was becoming like a film fan and realizing, oh, there's more than just like watching a cool movie. Like there can
Right.
be more to movies. So it was like the summer of Reservoir Dogs and Clerks and fucking Blair Witch and Scream was coming out and like just
Yeah.
all the movies that were like the first of something, and independent film was becoming a thing. You didn't need to be
Right.
have $1 million to make a movie, and this movie proved that.
Right. You could sell your plasma and make fucking El Mariachi. You could, you know,
Fuck yeah, dude, yeah.
you could mortgage your fucking beg your parents to, you know, put a lien on their house to make the Evil Dead. You
There
can,
would be no YouTube if there wasn't a Blair Witch.
right.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna put that out there.
Put it down right
You heard
now.
it here first, baby.
Preston Ham. Preston Ham.
Pressing hand, slamming it against the window. What's that?
So I'm going a straight 5 out of 5, dude. For
Oh shit, you're putting up this with Jaws.
I am for all the reasons you just said. If you were to ask me, it yes, it would go right next to Jaws, only because the execution and, like you said, everything around it, what it did, you know, for the culture, for the horror culture, for just the internet culture, like everything that this movie accomplished. And after 25, 26 years, whatever, the fact that I can sit down at 5 o'clock in the morning and it still like scares the shit out of me. That I love that. I love that. And I think that is a testament to why I give it a 5 out of 5. Just that power alone. It's the same thing with Jaws. Like I go back to Jaws, and if I really give it up, you know, and try to watch it for the first time, when you get down to the bottom of the orca and they're telling their fucking stories and showing their scars, it's like, this is masterpiece. This is masterpiece across the board. And the Blair Witch, when you get to that ending, it's like, dude, you know, because it's not just the performances, it's the fact that they strategically fucked with these people, you know, just enough to push them over the edge and create a whole new subgenre of
This
found.
is when horror, I feel like, was reinventing itself. We were coming out of the polished 80s of the Freddys and the Jasons, and they were like, what else can we do with this genre? And some exciting stuff came out around that time, man. And this was a
Yeah.
big one. I remember people talking about going to the theater and getting all sick. And so they
Yeah.
had to like post at the movie theaters. They had to put signs up that said that this can create motion sickness and shit.
Right. Yeah, because people weren't used to it. We hadn't seen
Right.
anything, you know, or very rarely did you see anything like that. And then this would like, boom, fucking Cloverfield, boom, fuck paranormal, you know, everything was like, yo, we can make a movie for next to nothing,
Right.
you know, get some halfway adequate talent in there. However, this was the staple. This was the one that says, this doesn't exist. I'm going to make a new thing. Whereas everybody else just seemed like, let's keep adding to this mountain, which
Right.
isn't a problem. It's cool to add bad stuff, but this is the one that said, "Here I am. This is a new fucking genre, and we're gonna do something completely different." And the fact that it still scares me after so many years is just wild to me. So yeah, 5 out of 5. Fuck straight
Nice.
running it.
Nice.
Run it. Okay. Mindfulness portion of the show. I wasn't even sure what I was gonna fucking talk about today. And then it kind of hit me right before I started because I had a friend over. Um, she's a massage therapist friend who comes over to the house and massages myself and Shayna. And I trade her for tattoos. It's like the best barter ever because she's really fucking good at what she does. But she was talking about listening to the podcast and she's like, "Oh yeah, you guys mentioned da 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 something about, if you want something, just do it." And the past, I would say 2 weeks, it's probably been a full 2 months in the whole process of laying all the plan out, getting everything done. But in the last 2 weeks, I've really started executing and starting seeing the fruits from starting my own business. Something that will be kind of an umbrella organization that a lot of things like my tattoos, and then I want to start looking into getting into some merchandising and stuff, but kind of have everything fall into this one thing. And I was able to, within a couple weeks, within a couple months, really build a legitimate business that is almost ready to operate on its own. Because that's what my fucking degree is in, dude, was organizational leadership and development. I like to develop those things. I enjoyed that. Like I wanted to do that, kind of strategic planning and shit like that. But I also want to make everything as simple as humanly possible. Remove the potential for human error as much as possible. If you can say it in 3 words, don't use more than three. There's no reason to. But that, after she had said something, I'm like, that really is, we all have the same 24 hours in a day. We all have the same 24. What we decide to do with them is totally within our power. I was at the VA. Now, it did help. I was at the VA on Monday morning. I had an appointment at 9:15 and then I had another appointment at 3:15. I just took my computer and my charger with me and sat there for just 4 dedicated hours, not looking at my phone, not doing anything. And it's amazing how much shit you can accomplish if you're just like, I'm not going to be distracted and I'm just going to sit and get this work done. Developing the skill to do that is so fucking important if you want to accomplish anything in life. To destroy our distractions. Everything is competing for our time. And you might be like, "Oh, well, I do all this, I do all that." Do an assessment of how you spend your time. I would say start with your screen time. Everybody's phone has a fucking little monitor on it that'll show you, "Hey, this is how much I'm on my phone." Start there. And then go to probably TV and your computer or your iPad next. And just look at the amount of time you spend throughout your day looking at a screen. I'm not saying screens are all bad. They're not all bad. But having a proper relationship with them, I think, is the key. But it's the too often it's like, okay, I'm going to sit down and write my fucking book. And then your phone's like ding. And you're like, oh, I just got to check it real quick and do this. No, turn that bitch off and just put it fucking in another room. Nobody is that important to your goal. Nobody's going to be texting you like, "Hey, I hope you're fucking doing it. Good job. I just had a feeling you were, going for it." Nobody's going to help you do your dream. The only thing that'll help us accomplish our dreams is to put the bullshit away and do the work. You've got to do the work. And it's amazing, though, how fast the work can produce results if you dedicate the time to do it. Most people think, "Oh, it's going to take fucking ever, so I might as well not do it." Well, you already mentally set yourself up for failure if you say that to begin with. And then there's also the long game where people in our society, especially our Western culture, instant gratification is everything. And we don't want to look and say, okay, I'm doing something that's not going to be ready for 2 or 3 years, but I know that my actions are leading me towards that thing. Being realistic. That's what they call SMART goals. What is it? Specific, measurable, applicable, I don't know. But anyway, there's a bunch of SMART goal shit that you can do to align your goals to make sure that when you say, okay, this is my 5-year goal, which I have written all over a big ass fucking whiteboard. I got all my goals and all the things, and I took all that, and then I said, okay, now how do I put systems in place that'll move those goals towards what I'm trying to do? Okay, starting to do that. And then every day I can look and say, hey, did I move myself a little bit in the right direction? But the trick is to just start. Just start undistracted with what you want out of life, because If you don't pick what we want, if we don't choose what we want out of life, someone else will choose for you. They will make that decision. You, me, whoever will end up in a job working 8 hours a day, miserable as fuck, just waiting for the weekend. And I don't want that for anyone in this world, dude. Anyone in this world. I've played that game and I did not like it very much. Maybe some people do. Maybe that's the perfect thing. I want to be in a fucking cubicle and they tell me exactly what to do and I do that and I know I'm done and then that's it. If that's you, right on. But if it's not, which I think a lot of people get stuck in positions where it's not, what would it take to change that? And I'll leave it at this, and then I want to get some of your thoughts on all of it. I was talking to a really good friend of mine, and actually two friends recently, and I asked both, what do you want out of life? If you could have your ideal life, what would it be? And both responses were, I have no idea. Write that on a piece of paper and figure it the fuck out.
Yeah.
If anyone listening, if you only take one thing away from this entire episode of this podcast, write on a piece of paper, what do I want out of life? My ideal life, or what's my whatever. I don't care how you want to phrase it so it fits you. But what do you want if you could have your ideal, like things are just fucking perfect, what would that look like? Write it on paper. Start setting up little milestones that'll help you get there. But that's the hardest thing is I think most of us don't know. We don't know what we want out of life. And if we don't know, then somebody else will be like, well, I want you to help me get what I want. Somebody who knows will, grab onto you and be like, hey, you do what I want because you're just helping my goal. You're just a cog in the machine. Essentially, I need a body. I worked in a lot of big corporate America, and that seems to be the way it goes. I don't need a person. I need a body to fill, a spot on a line somewhere or on a something. I just need somebody in there. All right. So that's my spiel for today. What do you got? Anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, man, I've been struggling with the same thing quite a bit. Anybody that's listened to this podcast knows that I had a shitty, fucking soul-crushing job in a cubicle, essentially, and I was having a hard time mentally with it and physically with it, and I was just at my bottom. But I was like, I can't walk away from the paycheck. That is where they had me on a leash. And finally, I got to the point where the paycheck wasn't worth it anymore. And I always had the backup in my mind of like, if I can prove this harassment, I'm gonna get some money out of it
Right.
because I'll just go. I'll claim I had to leave the job because they fucked me so hard. Well, guess what? I left my job and I was like, all right, now it's time to get down to business and get some money out of this bullshit. Talked to a lawyer and they were like, it's not illegal for your boss to be a fucking prick to you. As a matter of fact, the company probably encourages it. I'm like,
Oh,
well, fuck. Okay, well, at least I can get my unemployment.
yeah.
And I knew they were going to deny me because if you quit, they just automatically deny you.
Right. The
So
system
you have to appeal that shit.
generates. Yeah.
Right. So I fucking set up my appeal and everything. I had like 2 weeks to get it all ready and everything. I looked up like Washington State Code and all of that stuff. I really thought I had my paperwork game on point. I sent all the paperwork to the judge. I did not send it to the hospital, not thinking that that was part of my responsibility. It was, and the judge threw out all my fucking paperwork. And from that point where I was like, don't let them put you on the defense in this hearing.
Yeah.
I was immediately on my defense. They're like, the guy was like, Mr. Bromley, why didn't you do it? It clearly states in your 50-page packet that you needed to do this. And I'm like, all right, well, maybe I just glanced at that shit. And, you instantly feel like a dipshit, dude. And then, of course, the hospital, they're like, you can get a lawyer. And I was like, I don't need a lawyer. I can fucking represent myself.
Right.
You need a lawyer. The hospital brought a lawyer, and that guy made me look like a fucking dipshit.
Right.
And it was just one of those things in life where I'm like, I constantly tell myself, you can't be good at everything, but you kind of want to tell yourself that you got everything. Like you're on top of this, you got this. I'm maybe a talented writer. I'm not a talented lawyer, I found out. And a real lawyer who studies that and shit fucking made me look like a
But
dumbass
they've also
in front of the judge. And so I
convoluted
bought
the
the
law,
appeal.
dude. The law has been so like twisted
Oh, for
and the
sure.
fine print and all that shit. Like they built a system. That's why lawyers charge you fucking $250 an hour because they're the only ones that understand it. They're like, yeah, I'll spend 8 years of my life trying to figure this bullshit out so I can help you, and you're gonna fucking pay me for it because
Right.
yeah, it's a really fucking deep. Yeah, it's I mean, corporate law is insane. It's insane.
Yeah, man. It's crazy. And I couldn't even find the actual like statutes that for Washington because they make it so hard to like sift through this shit. So in the end, I was just like, they were like, yeah, your mental thing doesn't matter because you didn't turn in a doctor's note. Your shoulder being injured doesn't matter because you didn't turn in a doctor's note. And you quit because your boss is mean to you. Boo fucking who. All bosses are mean. So tough. That's essentially what the judge said to me.
Yeah.
And I was so deflated, dude. Like it really fucking knocked me back. That I was like, ooh, I thought I had my shit together, and I clearly didn't. And you get that feeling that you're like, I could have done more to fix that situation had I focused more on it. But like you were saying, figure out what you want and make that your goal. Since I've been out of work, I've got several goals that are all taking up all of my time. I want to get fit again. So I've been going back to the gym 3 times a week. That
That's
shit's not
awesome.
just an hour of your day. You got
No,
to get ready for the gym. You got to drive over to the gym. You got to work out for an hour. Then you got to come home and shower and fucking get something to eat. By the time you're done with that, it's noon, 1 o'clock for me. And I got up at 7, dude.
right.
So and I'm like, and I want to write today. When the fuck am I? Oh, and I got a podcast with Pops Ghostly today. And I got a fucking, oh man, all my doors are brown and they need to be painted white. So I better get fucking on that. Oh, that shit takes 5 coats of paint. That's going to take me 2 fucking weeks. All this stuff. And I'm like literally painting and writing shit down on my phone because I came up with an idea for a fucking story. And then I'm like, oh shit, Pops just posted some cool art and shit. And like, oh, we're changing our logo today. Awesome. Didn't even hear
Oh,
about
we got
that.
a
Like,
new logo. We got a new
we
logo.
got a
That's
new
right.
logo, everybody.
Yeah, it's fucking cool too. Uh,
Anyway, I'll cut this down short. It That whole thing was like a real kick in the nuts, and I had given up after that first appeal. I was like, okay, my appeals are done. We're gonna put it in the past, and I'm just gonna focus on improving right now and taking this time that just got like cut short because now I have to get a job right away.
right.
Um, and I'm probably gonna go right back into the same situation of having another boss that I fucking hate and all this stuff. And that's not.
However, I will say now that you've done it once and left a bad situation, next time you're in a shit situation, you'll be like, fuck this. It's so much easier, dude. So much easier to be like, no, no.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I won't let you
I'll
talk
walk away. I
that.
won't let it do it for a year and a half this time.
Right.
Uh, but the other thing is that when the judge actually listed the stuff that they used against me, she actually put in the Washington codes saying like, this is why you're stupid. And so I went and looked at those and I found fucking obvious loopholes. And
Yeah.
I was like, oh, holy shit. Because one of the big things is that I wasn't sexually harassed. I wasn't like, I wasn't like, sorry, sexually harassed or a disability that you have.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Another one, that's a reason, that's a good cause reason, or because you were discriminated against. So a 40-year-old white person can't say that they were discriminated against. You can't claim disability because I'm not like in a wheelchair.
Right.
And I had nothing to go on basically. But when you really look into it, mental illness is a disability. I
Yes.
did get put on Wellbutrin, and I had never been put on an antidepressant before or scheduled for an antidepressant. But because I didn't know to focus on that part of it,
Right.
the lawyer fucking railroaded me over, dude, and actually used that exact thing as this is what he didn't do. But I did. I just didn't know how to argue that I did
Right. Right.
the right thing, that I did
I
have this
wish you
good
would have
cause.
told me, dude. I'd have come and been your lawyer. I would have fucking just talk and been like, but I also figured all that shit out. I feel like the law is not super difficult, but it's very, very time consuming. You got to be ready to
Absolutely.
sit down, and I would probably pay a lawyer, like, let me get 2 hours of your time, just prep me to go in this and do this by myself.
Right.
Instead of paying your full whatever, if I could find somebody that would help out in that way, but who knows? But either way, yes, their job, man.
I can bring anybody I want. You want to be on this court case with me, Pops Ghostly?
I would love to, dude.
All right, let's do
Bring me
it.
in. Yeah, bring me in.
All right.
But do you also want to go
Retainer.
back to doing this and continue to fight it? Because I got to a point where I was like, I'm done fighting against it. Like the mental energy to fight it and then to think about it and to stress about it and to worry about it and all that. I was like, keep all the fucking money, keep all of it. I don't care. I'm out. Like
That's
just
100%, dude. 100%. And I was there. And then after having a couple days to look into it and come around, I was like, if nothing else, I just got to still be a thorn in their side, dude.
right, right. And
I
I
got to
get that. I
push
do
me a
get
little
that.
bit.
I do get that, but then on the other side, I'm like, the freedom is, oh, but yeah, but I did do the thorn in the side for a while. I fought mine for a long time. You know what I mean? I didn't just give up right away. I was like, but once it got to the point where it's like, you get these at this corporate level where they just don't care. And all they do is point out like handbook thing here, handbook thing there. You signed off on this, yada, yada, yada. Yeah, it gets pretty ugly.
It does, and I really thought hard about like just how good it would feel to just let it all go, and not fight anymore. But I was like, I got one more round in me, dude. I
Yeah.
got one more, and this time I don't care about the money. It's not about that anymore. It's just literally about being like, I fucked up the first time, so now I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna give them my best, and then at least I
Yeah.
know that I gave it my best. I fought as hard as I could, and I saw it through to the end, even though it was hard and I didn't want to do it.
I respect that. Putting it out that way, I 100% respect and support that shit because I think that's one of the best skills you can have is not wanting to do something and doing it well anyway.
Yep.
So do it, dude. Do it. All
So
right. Or
that's
Pop
it.
Extravaganza. Fucking Pops Ghostly.
Fucking Preston Ham, baby.
No! No! No!
Extravaganza.